Welcome on, my friends, to the sweet spot where IT leaders share their insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas, and as in every week, I have my two co-hosts, Holton and Paul Lewis. How you doing, guys?
Hey there.
You know, Carlos, I have to say, every single week you do that intro and your smile gets bigger throughout the intro and it makes me try to smile. And do you keep that smile throughout the entire podcast? Because I can't say I've ever noticed. It's an amazingly big smile. You're so excited.
I'm excited, and you remember that somebody said, "Hey, you guys should smile more." Remember in one of the episodes?
Yeah, we got comments.
Oh, somebody did say. So you're smiling for all of us. I really appreciate
I'm smiling
you
for everyone. Being happy and enjoying the day.
It's good. What's the weather like where you're at?
It's good. It's around 80s, so it's cool.
See, I get weather vicariously through you.
That's right.
This morning I woke up and it was nice and clear and it got up to a high of 56. And then it dropped back down to 48 and we got thunderstorms and we're rolling into hail season, which is what we would call spring.
Hail season is spring.
It's not snowing, therefore it's spring.
I haven't been outside in days. I couldn't tell you what the weather's like, but my dogs keep coming in and out. I assume it's fine.
I have to get out at least once a day. At least to walk the dog. A little bit of getting a little bit of air from the outside.
I'm getting paint fumes. That's kind of like fresh air, isn't it?
It is. You get enough of them, you'll think you're anywhere in the world. You get too many of them, you go full astral and don't come back.
That's right.
Be careful.
So across the years, we have traveled together. We have enjoyed meals together. We have had meetings together. So it sounds like there's a lot of dark ages, a lot of topics that we have communicated and shared across the years.
That's true. Our first year was totally dark, right? We can call those the dark ages. They had no video and therefore were dark.
Right.
Remember, we did recordings in India. Did we record in London, Carlos? Do you remember?
Yeah, we recorded in London, we recorded in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Tokyo.
Zaltbommel, right? We recorded in Zaltbommel.
Zaltbommel? Wow. All over the world.
Yeah.
We recorded in Canada.
That's
We
right.
did. That was one of the earlier ones. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Trying to set up in a little corner of the office that we could find that was kind of quiet.
Vegas, I assume.
Oh yeah, we did a
Vegas.
couple Vegas. We did VMworld and a couple others. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So one thing that keeps coming up is that some companies try to sell you on their features. Will an executive or a CIO ever care about the features, or what can that company help them to do to accomplish their goals? I think that was one of the early topics.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm expecting a delivery from Best Buy today. Apple released the new Apple Tag, right? I don't know if you've been following that. And it's it's the smallest of the kind of smart tags. You clip it on your devices and you use your phone and you can locate the devices and make them do a little chime. It pairs just like your AirPods pair, right? So you just kind of like you pull the thing and then it goes, "Hey, we've detected an AirPod. Do you want it?" And you say yes. Right? Is it your AirPod? Yes. And then you give it a name, right? Sounds super cool. Sounds super neat. So I got online and I ordered smart tags and I bought Tile.
Really?
I really did. Because to your point, I looked at the capabilities, right? What does a smart tag enable me to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I realize I'm being really micro, but I'm doing it kind of on purpose. What does the smart tag enable me to do? And what are the capabilities that I want? An AirTag is unidirectional. It will tell me where the tags are, but I can't go to the tag, hit a button, and have it find my phone.
Right.
And if the tag is supposed to be smart, shouldn't I be able to do either one? Maybe set a boundary, so if a thing moves outside the boundary, it'll alert me.
Right. Geofencing.
Right, geofencing, right? And so when I looked to the capabilities, all of the capabilities were fulfilled by the Tile.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that lacking. Now you might be able to look at that and go, yeah, Howard, you were just buying features, but I really wasn't. I'm looking at the capabilities that adds in my life, right? I want a smart tag. That's what I'm buying. I'm not buying a jingle feature, right? I've got some stupid generic ones that I bought years ago. I never used them because their features sounded great, but the totality of the ecosystem ended up being garbage, ended up being useless, right? It didn't really do anything for me other than ended up being a nifty looking keychain.
And you need a much bigger ecosystem, right? Some of your searching is around the house, but some of your searching might be relying on thousands or millions of other users who also have tags and also have apps.
Right. And you know what? If my tile moves in range of someone else's tile app, then my tile can communicate back to me and say, hey, dummy, you left this 32 miles away.
Well, supposedly the Apple tag will do that.
Sure. No, it absolutely will. That is a feature that it has. But you know what else it has? It has being 3 days old.
Right.
And it communicates with less than 50% of phones.
Yeah. And there's not millions of them out in the market at the moment.
Right. Tile has a huge ecosystem that's expanded into other devices. I can buy a key smart kind of keychain thingy that has a tile built right into it and a flashlight for some godforsaken reason. Right? Like they simply have more maturity in the market than Apple does. Will it change? Sure, but frankly, the device has a 1-year lifespan and then the battery dies. And then I have to decide, do I put a new battery in it or do I throw it away and go, hey, Apple now achieves everything I want to. And I can then buy that, right? But at that point, today, I have no smart tags. I don't have any, right? So I'm adding that capability into my world. Right? And today the capability is fulfilled by Tile. Tomorrow, sure, it might be another company. That's why when I buy any piece of equipment or any piece of software or any capability for my IT staff, what capability does it solve today? And is that new to my ecosystem? Is that new to my team? Is that new to my environment? And then you know what I do? I review it generally a year before the contract ends. Right? I'm never buying a feature, I'm buying a capability. And the capability is far more than just the features.
But when you say capabilities, if we think about a company, the software or service, should it be better than the competition, or the ecosystem or everything that they're offering is what you consider when you make that decision as an executive for the company, or what it will help you generate if you're reselling that or integrating that into a product, let's say?
So it depends, because it's not a circle, right? I'm not looking at it as this, like everything encompassed within the circle, right? It's one of those kind of jagged graphs that gets drawn, right? Where I look at, does the product accomplish the basic things I need done within that vertical, right? We could talk storage, or we could use something else as the example, right? We use cloud, right? Does it give me the ability to move the things I have on-prem into the cloud without having to go through a bunch of work? Does the security meet the minimum requirements of whatever security certification I need to hit? Does it have the variety of applications that I'm looking for that are pre-built, right? Does it hit those things? And then I look to like licensing, not cost, but licensing. If I'm moving third-party tools into it, does their license agreement have a cloud component to it where my costs are aligned? Or do I have to enter into a new licensing agreement to enable moving this thing into the cloud? And what does that do to the contract I'm currently under? And then I look to things like company health. How old is the company? How funded is the company? How likely are they to be sold during my contract life? It's super important. One of the most important things I look at, right? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to buy something and 6 months later they get sold and the new company says, you know, that support that you loved, we're not going to do that anymore. Instead, our support is turning to bastard version. And I don't know about you, Paul, but I've had that happen a dozen times at least.
Yeah. And I would say to your original point there that you have sort of run the bank buying decisions and build the bank buying decisions, right? And all the dimensions aren't the same. It's quite possible that you have a list of must-haves in order to even be on the list to consider. And then from that list, I have a different determination on which ones I'd actually pick, right? It's not necessarily features and functions, it's not necessarily cost, it might be entirely relationship-based, right? Versus any of those other things. But I would make different decisions on whether I previously budgeted or it's a new point of my budget. It's a distinct problem I'm having now or a future problem I have now. Or it's about innovation where I'm much more likely to experiment versus running the bank where I need, relative stability. I think there's a lot of different dimensions to sort of ultimately making that decision.
Well, and then there's the people part, right? Which I want to double, triple, quadruple click on, because a capability is all of my capabilities specifically rely in my people. 0% rely on the tools, right? The percent that rely on my tools only and not my people aren't considered capabilities. That's considered the portion of it that's shelfware because I'm not using it.
Right.
And so then it comes down to how obvious is it to use? Truly obvious, right? How much training is required? Because I don't care if you give my whole staff training. I gain people and I lose people and I move people and I promote people. And so the people that are now within the circle of that capability are going to change, and they're going to change every quarter. So I can't rely on them being here for 3 years, and I can't rely on them aging that training. I also can't really rely on them being the perfect teacher. I'd love it if they were. So instead, I have to rely on the tools being obvious. And 10 years ago, I couldn't. It was impossible, right? Every tool was difficult to use. Every tool was designed by an engineer, like the UI was designed by an engineer.
Right.
But thankfully, we can blame Apple, truthfully, right? The goal, Steve Jobs said about the iPad when it was announced, he said, I want the hardware to disappear. I want you to not think about the hardware, right? Everything else has been something. The iPad is nothing until you give it an app. When you give it a word processor, then it's a word processor, right? When you give it a game, it's a gaming machine. When you give it a movie, it's a TV.
Right.
It was absolutely genius because that's kind of how apps should be designed. Right? The hardware needs to disappear, and I just need to be able to focus on how quickly can I get my job done, and how obvious is the path to do that. And then secondarily, I look at how do I get data out of it in the way I need to both report and alert. This is the only two facets I care about. I need to alert so somebody knows when something's doing wrong. But I also need to report because nearly everything I own someone needs to understand the value of it. It's generally me as the CIO, right? It's generally me as leadership. I'm not running the tool, so I'm never going to actually see the value of it through mouse clicks. Where I'm going to see the value is how do I report on how this tool is better than the last tool, how this platform is better than the last platform, how this capability is better enabled than the last capability.
Yeah, so I need to either extend the capability I already have by adding potentially tools or new people, right? Or creating whole new capabilities from scratch, right? I don't know how to do machine learning. I don't know how to implement automation. I don't know how to do containerized virtualization. And therefore I have to obtain that knowledge, not just from a people skill set perspective, but a technological implementation perspective. And who am I going to partner with in order to make that happen? And the reality is, it's quite possible smarter people work somewhere else. And because of that, the partnership with the people is more important in many ways than the partnership with the technology, because you're only as good as with the people you have in order to implement that technology or use it, or even using the features and functions to create value for your organization, right? Just because that exists doesn't mean you know to click it.
Yeah, you're only as good as your ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To use your term from prior days, right? And so really what I want to know is what does that capability that you're delivering do for my organization, and how do you fit into my ecosystem of smart people, or my ecosystem of smart resources? And I use the word smart not because they all have to be super smart mega geniuses, but because I don't add dumb ones.
Right.
So how important is truly that ecosystem to you guys as leaders to make a decision?
Well, it's really important. It's not So the ecosystem is everything, right? And I mean that by, there's no, like, I don't have an ecosystem with one vendor, with one partner. The ecosystem is the totality of my capabilities and the capabilities of the partners and vendors to which I engage, buy, and consider to be, strategic. And it's really important for me to understand, how do you fit in that ecosystem, and how additive are you to that ecosystem? It might be the most important, to be honest.
Right. Like I have in my technological toolkit an ability to solve most of my problems. It doesn't necessarily mean the people who work for me to which I pay a salary. It might in fact be the talent I have access to, or the information I have access to, or the tool set I have access to outside of the company that I can apply in real time, right? Or apply to that one problem, or apply holistically to the business. I should be able to make those decisions based on the ecosystem I have, right? So I can have a team of 10,000 people, even though I only have 100 people. And I need it to feel like I can solve far broader, far more complex problem sets with a limited staff.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's a really interesting point of view, that we constantly keep hearing vendors offering or focusing on the features and not on the ecosystem. So if the ecosystem is so important, will you make a different decision if a part?
What question are you really asking?
So the ecosystem component is, I think, the most important component.
So if features are similar, you will prefer a partner that have a stronger ecosystem than another one. That is simple, correct?
So let's talk about how features matter. I have the definition of requirements. Do the features meet the requirements?
Right.
So I don't care if you have 30 features more than your competition. If your competition also meets my requirements, you both pass the feature test.
Right.
That's
it is very rare.
I care about features.
Yeah, it is very rare for a single vendor to have that one feature that is significantly better or significantly unique than someone else.
Correct.
It's incredibly rare. It's not, whereas everybody will buy your product because of that one feature you have. And if that's even true, it is a short-term issue, because you know that the competitors are now working on that feature since you're stealing all their money, right?
Correct. The second your competitor loses to a feature discussion, they will simply add the feature. And I'm not trying to minimize how hard it is to add a feature, but that will be their focus, right? And the fact is, smart buyers buy the ecosystem, right? Really, you meet my requirements, your competitor meets my requirements. Bring in the CTO and introduce him and say, hey, you are a strategic sell to us. We're looking to make you a long-term partner. Here's my email and my phone number and how you get a hold of me. So that when you have a feature request, when you want to know how to do something, when you want to know why we implemented something in a certain way, you can get a hold of me. That would make a difference to me. That'd be a feature that I would buy.
Yeah, I was asked recently how one would define a partner versus vendor, and I sort of put it in 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 was talent. I want to be able to access interesting people in your organization, talented people that actually creates value in my organization, adds capability to me. Number 2 was engagement. How do we engage, not just between us, but between a network of other people, other clients of yours that have similar problems to mine, or even just greater industry conversations outside of this exact conversation. And then finally, innovation. How do I ensure that I'm one of the first to see and use some of your cool innovations that might actually create value to me in real time? Like, let's do that. Let's have that partnership conversation. And that's why I would choose vendor A over vendor B.
So if it's between 2 vendors, vendor A and vendor B, and they're both otherwise equal, they're stable companies with stable funding, with long-term roadmaps, with significant experience, blah, 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 blah. And one goes, hey, We fully believe in the strategic value of our arrangement. We want you to be part of our customer council. Guess which one I'm going with? And it's not because they're magic. It's because, you know what? I know exactly how a customer council works. I understand the access I'll have. I understand that you're making an investment in me and I'm making an investment in you. I also understand that I'm not the only one in the customer council. And so I get to hear from my peers who are also using the same thing we're using, and we can generally talk about it at the same level, right? It's additive for everyone. Right. If you don't have a customer council and your competition does, and they offer me a place on it, you're in trouble, because now the only thing you can really offer me is a quarterly one-on-one with super smart people like your CTO or your founder or something to try to compensate, and it's poor compensation.
And the QBRs can't be a tactical QBR. The QBRs have to be a conversation that accesses that interesting talent or talks about those new innovations, right? It's not is this project working well? Because I hope I know that already. I don't have to wait for a quarter to understand that, right? And it shouldn't be about how much money I've spent with you, because I already know how much money I've spent with you. We need to review it again. What I really want to know is who you're going to put in front of me to increase my knowledge base or create new capability for me. That's what's most interesting.
I want to leave the QBR with a firm understanding of how your company operates, how you're adding value to me, and how I'm adding value to you.
Yeah.
And I really want to know the second one, believe it or not. Like, I don't want to leave feeling like I just sat in a room and made no difference.
Right.
If as a partner, then I can add all that, what will be that determining factor that will make you say, I prefer partner one versus partner two?
So if both vendors are offering everything we just asked for?
How about, let's say that they offer that, will a connection to a third party that you also use. So let's call, if you're a Microsoft shop or you're an Oracle shop or whatever other, and you can then also help, like you said, if I bring smart people, if you bring other value to you, will that be interesting that you can say they're investing on me, like you mentioned that a council? What else can make you as a leader think the features is not what I care, is what you're doing as a whole for our company?
Sure. So for me, my strategy is far from perfect. So if you can help me better develop my strategy as it relates to the spot that you fit in, that would be super helpful. If you're willing to make that investment, right? Quarterly reviews, if you're willing to make that investment, right? Now that's more tactical. Quarterly reviews are more tactical, right? Then yeah, those are things that would absolutely make a difference. Now, if you told me everything I listed before you asked the question, I had 2 vendors competing for my business that were the same in all of those ways, I'm going to leap out of my chair, I'm going to run down the street, and I'm going to buy a lottery ticket, because today is never going to happen again.
Yeah, it's never happened. I've never been in that situation.
It's
a hypothetical that will never become true.
Yeah, it's much more like picking a president, to be honest, right? Which one failed the least? It's not very often that I have a vendor actually blow my doors off on all of those things.
Yeah. That being said, the personal relationship is still incredibly important, and if anything, it's an easy discount. In other words, I'm going to discount using you as a vendor if I don't actually trust you as a sales rep, right? If I don't actually believe your technological prowess when you're demonstrating the product to me, right? If I think you have some sort of unethical behavior, they're all going to be turned off immediately. You could have everything else, and I'm still not going to do business with you if I don't trust you as an individual sales team.
Yeah, and my advice to sales leadership is don't take it personally. Don't try to fix it. Just move it as quickly and seamlessly as you can.
Right.
Let me interview another salesperson. Like, if you do that, I'm not throwing anybody out on their ear. I will simply extend and go, well, they're making an effort. to make sure that I'm happy. Like that actually matters. And you know what I mean? Rather than, because I've had it go the other way where everybody acts butthurt and I'm like, look, it's just a personality issue. I don't understand. Like, I'm not telling you your baby's ugly. I'm just saying I don't get along with that person. So just give me another person. It's like, do you really only have does it really matter? Like, is this how you grade your salespeople? This is a terrible way to do it. Just give them a different account. Let's go. Let's make this work.
That's exactly what happened in a very, very large vendor, like a major vendor for me. And I just didn't gel with the sales team, specifically the salesperson. And I went back to the sales leadership, said, just give me somebody new. I'm not going to just turn off my entire relationship with you because of this relationship, but you have to give some, right? Give me somebody different. And it was like pulling teeth to get a new account rep. Eventually got one, but it was like quarters before it occurred.
Oh yeah, I'm going through it now. Like I have a relationship with the vendor and I want to add the vendor to our vendor card. And so I said, I want this salesperson because I've had I trust them.
Right.
I've known them for a decade or more. Like this has been a good relationship. I trust them. And it's going to shortcut a lot of the normal work because I just start from a position of trust.
Right.
No, so now I have to write a letter to like I don't know, regional sales something right. to make it happen. And like, it's ridiculous. I've made the request. Why should this ever be a fight? It's not like anybody's losing anything. We're not an established account.
Right.
We don't buy from you now. I'm trying to start a relationship. Why would we not do that on the absolute best foot possible?
Right.
Right. Like, shouldn't that just endear a phone? Like, why do I have to write a letter? Somebody should just pick up the phone and call me and go, hey, Howard, is this a real request? Like, I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's an absolute real request. Here's the history. Like, you have it in your CRM, go look it up.
Right.
And then have that person call me and tell me this is all good. Because otherwise you've got a culture that makes me wonder if we go back to the smart people, if you just don't have smart people anymore.
Right.
Right, because it's a dumb decision. So do you not have smart people? Do I have to be concerned about that? That would be a weird thing for me.
Now I fully understand that there are sales territories. Having like three of us have all worked in sales teams, right? So we appreciate there's territory limitations, but at some point it rolls up to a person which you're included in, right? The city, the state, the half country, the full country. At some point you get to a person that your logo would fall into. Like, talk to that person.
Yeah. It's especially bad when there's no possibility of a sale. As it sits today, I couldn't tell you who owns the account, right? Who's been assigned it. It's exploratory, and not one person inside my organization is willing to take a call from whoever that might be.
Right.
So, literally,
they are prospect of zero revenue if we don't make this decision.
Correct. I actually have it with two different vendors. The other vendor has been like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll hook you up with whoever you need.
Perfect.
Like, we'll just, whatever you need, if we can just have a phone call, you can have whoever you want.
Are there different magnitudes of vendors? Like, one is a $100 billion vendor and one is a $100 million vendor?
No, I think they're both pretty damn big.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact dollar amounts, right?
I find that the bigger the company, the more strict they are in their behavior.
Yeah, I don't know. One's older, one's newer. That I'm sure has something to do with it.
I don't want to cloud native technologies.
Yeah, one is definitely cloud native.
Which brings me to an interesting side. Do you make different vendor decisions on premise versus cloud? In other words, do you have a cloud native decision matrix, which is different than a legacy decision matrix?
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do.
So how are they distinctly different?
I order them differently. Right. Shockingly, stability is not my number one requirement in a cloud native company. My number one requirement is what does your API look like, and how do we do this as code?
Right.
How do I focus on agile as quickly as possible? How do you fit within that ecosystem? And if I were to tell you how we worked, how quickly can you tell me how to integrate what you do into that?
Right.
That's interesting, because what it sounds like is that as vendors change, features truly are not what's gonna differentiate that vendor. It's gonna be the relationship, what they can do as a whole to help that company that is probably requesting the service or that may want to engage. So, my friends, coming back from the dark ages, make sure that you remember the features is not what gonna make you win the client. It's what you can do as a whole to make their life easier and probably for their customers. So as always, make sure that you subscribe, share this podcast, and my friends, we'll see you on our next episode.